So I want to show you what's working best for me right now when it comes to lead generation. This can be for local leads, this can be for a VSL funnel, a webinar funnel, any type of funnel that has an opt-in and collects the visitor's information. Even if you have a calendar further down, this can work well. We typically will start, even if it's a VSL funnel, where we're essentially having an opt-in and then some type of sales letter, and then we're trying to get them to book a call or fill out an application, then book a call. We will typically start with optimizing for leads, and then we will essentially go down the funnel. Then we'll try and compare the quality of optimizing for the application conversion event, and then we will duplicate the campaign again, and then we will optimize for the scheduled event, so the booked call. And then we'll even start setting up automations, typically in Go High Level or whatever CRM our clients are using, to where the qualified calls are getting tagged and are getting uploaded back into the pixel as their own event. So essentially the conversion would be a qualified call, and then the sales team, whether it's a local business or high ticket offer, would be essentially tagging them by adding a tag in the CRM or moving the opportunity or deal to a specific stage that would trigger that qualified call to be uploaded back into the ad account. And we would be optimizing for that. So you would choose leads on the sales objective on the campaign level, and then on the ad set level, you would be choosing that qualified booked call, if that's what you're optimizing for. And then I'll show you in another video, with certain clients, we actually optimize for the purchase. So even though we're sending them to a call funnel or straight to an application or to a VSL funnel, what we're doing is on the back end, we're having the sales team, every time they move a closed deal to a specific stage, it actually uploads whatever the deals are worth. Say it's a $2,500 deal or a $6,000 deal, a $10,000 deal. It's uploading a $10,000 or $2,500, whatever their offer is worth, purchase event back to the ad account, and it goes back to the right campaign, the right ad set, and the right ad. And so what we're doing is we're actually just optimizing for that purchase event. And what we find is that the calls typically are higher when we do that. So if your calls are normally like $80, you may be paying $250 for a phone call, but we'll find that our clients will close like 50%. I would say 40 to 50% of the actual calls that come through. So say if like 70% show up, they will close 70, 80% of those actual calls that show up to the call. I mean, it's a massive difference. So it all is on a client-to-client basis. For certain clients, they would rather have volume because they have a full team of setters, closers, and a big sales team, and they just want the cheapest calls coming in as possible. For other clients, it's one or two people on the sales team, or it's the owner taking the sales calls, and they literally want the best possible quality showing up to those calls, and they would rather pay $250 or $300 for a phone call and close the majority of those calls, as opposed to getting a bunch of really cheap phone calls, and it takes them 10 phone calls before they actually close one, because the quality is not as high. So each scenario is different. It's based on what the main goal is when it comes to how you want those sales calls to look and what you're willing to pay per call. But what I'm going to show you right now is primarily, these are two different webinar funnels, but this would be the same exact setup if you were running to a VSL funnel, a local lead gen opt-in funnel. It doesn't matter whether you're selling insurance, service-based business, high ticket, it really doesn't matter. But yeah, so let me show you, I'm not gonna build this from scratch, but I'm gonna show you the exact setup here. So looking inside this campaign, you can see this says live webinar, we're optimizing for leads, it's ABO, and then I have the date. This is just for my own notes of when exactly the live webinar is, so I make sure that the ad set is scheduled to end at the time of that or a few minutes before, just so we don't overspend. So looking inside of it, you can see the campaign objective is leads. So if you were creating a new campaign from scratch, you would choose leads. We're using ad set ABO, so ad set budget optimization. Looking inside, this is our, for this one, we're just running one ad set right now. You can see for this, I was given a $3,000 budget. I'm running lifetime budget here, you don't have to. We ran their first webinar for this client a week and a half ago. We only spent maybe $1,500, but they got a 7x return on their on the investment from ads. And so for them, they're like, okay, cool, let's start doing this at least once a week. And if that works well, we'll probably do them 2 or 3 times a week. And so we have clients that are spending, say $10,000 per webinar to generate the leads and closing $150,000 in a single 1-hour webinar, just live, getting people to pay right there on the webinar without even pushing them to a sales team. So some are pushing them to a sales team, some are literally putting a checkout link right in the actual webinar and collecting payments right then. But yeah, so anyways, looking inside this, this client sells a nutrition plan. Their ideal prospects are people that are already in CrossFit. We've just found that people that, if they're not in CrossFit, they typically just won't close them. If they are in CrossFit, they'll close the majority of them. So it's one of those, we could get them much cheaper calls, but our main goal here is to get them the right prospects on their calendar every day or showing up to their live webinar. So this says CrossFit is the interest. I have this just from my own notes that we're targeting, and it's an original audience, meaning we don't have Advantage Plus audience applied to it. So that Google, so that Meta is not allowed to go outside of that audience. We're forcing it to stay within that interest because we have found when we target that interest that the people convert at a much higher rate than when we go broad or even add Advantage Plus targeting onto it. So looking inside of this, you can see we're just optimizing for leads here. I'm using cost caps. I have it set to $25, and this takes some testing. You can see that we're getting, under $5 leads. And a lot of times what I'll find is that the close rate will be higher if I overbid. So even if I'm using cost caps and optimizing for a call, a lot of times I will, bid $150 or $200 for a call, and our calls will still be $100. And so it definitely takes some testing. If you really wanted to test it, you could duplicate this ad set and try it at $15, try it at $5. What I find a lot of times is if you get too close to the goal that you want, it actually just won't spend at all. So you typically have to overbid with Meta in order to keep it spending. So looking inside of this, so we're optimizing for leads. We have a $25 cost cap. So that this is telling Meta only spend if you can get leads within $25. And it looks at a 7-day window typically, so it's looking at the last 7 days. What it'll do is it will pull back the spend if the last 7 days are out of pocket and it is not getting you at least $25 leads. For me, I would tighten this up. If the leads started going beyond $5, I would pull this back to probably $15 and then again to probably like $10 and then $5 if needed. But right now it's working really well. It's hitting the KPI that we want. Everything's within pocket, so I'm letting it run because of that. I usually like to bid as high as I can as long as the actual end result is hitting our ideal KPI. Just because when you bid higher, you typically win more auctions, and then you get pushed higher in Meta's feed. So if you think that think of this as retargeting other people's audiences. Think of when you go to, say this is a fitness product, when these people are going to all your competitor websites and checking them out, researching fitness plans, nutrition plans, workout plans, when they come back to Meta, the higher you bid, typically the higher up on the feed they will be, or your ads will be, meaning that you will be hitting them when their intent is the highest. If not, you're usually much lower down. Given this takes some testing, but you just have to understand the psychology of when you bid higher, whether it's with cost caps, bid caps, target ROAS, the more aggressively you bid, the higher you are up on the feed. So the intent is higher by the people that you're showing your ads to, but you have to make sure that your funnel or website is converting high enough to still keep you within KPI. Hopefully all that makes sense. Let me scroll down here. So we have a 3,000, we doubled the budget for this. So this client was really happy getting a 7X. He's like, all right, let's do another one this coming Wednesday. So we have 4 or 5 days basically to spend. And he said, let's double the budget. Let's spend $3,000. So instead of doing daily budget, I find a lot of times if it's an ongoing evergreen webinar, I'll use daily budgets, or just an evergreen funnel like a VSL funnel or an opt-in funnel, any type of lead gen funnel that's gonna just keep running continually. This one is date to date essentially at this point. So I like to use lifetime budget for that scenario. I find what it does is it allows Facebook to spend much more on the days where it knows they can hit your ideal KPI and pull back on the days that it doesn't believe that it can hit your ideal KPI, or essentially that your ideal prospects that aren't enough of them online are online that day, or something has changed in the auctions or in user behavior, whatever it is. So I've found that the end result usually is better when using lifetime budget. It's just not it's not ideal when you have to keep moving the end date of your lifetime budget when it's a campaign that's running forever. But I would say overall, I typically see better results when using lifetime budget, but nowadays I primarily only use them for webinars that have specific dates. There was a time when I was literally moving the end date forward every week, or even like once a month, and doing like really big budgets. But it's not a massive difference, but I would say there is a slight difference. So I'm using cost caps, I'm using lifetime budget, given this can be daily budget for you as well. Either way works completely fine. So you can see see how it says switch to recommended setup? That means that we're using an original audience. We're targeting CrossFit, not targeting any languages because we're in the US already. We typically see better KPIs. I wouldn't say there's a massive difference. So if you really want to stay away from anyone that doesn't speak English, feel free to add English on there. I go back and forth on that. There's certain metrics or certain settings within Meta that I don't find make a big difference. That is one of them that I don't find make a big difference when you're running only within the United States. If you're running worldwide, 100%. If it's for lead generation, I will typically add that. If it's for ecom, I still typically keep it off actually. Okay, cool. So scrolling down here, and then you can see within, on the ad level, multi-advertisers, I've been using them more lately. I don't find they make a massive difference. According to everything we found with Meta, they can go outside of your targeting, but I like that they give you that omnipresent feel and approach that you're kind of everywhere. I do find that the result is a little bit better when using them, at least recently, post Andromeda. So I have been using this setting post Andromeda. Everything else I have not been using. So you can see inside of here, all of these are off. Yep. So all of these enhancements are off. I've A/B tested this a lot. I'm just seeing better results overall by keeping that off. For the CTA, I typically make that as clear as possible with the action that I want them to take. And then yeah, self-explanatory, free live training, body recomp, live webinar. It's all pretty straightforward with the ad copy. But yeah, when looking at the ad level, you can see even though we're using a $25 cost cap, we're still getting under $5 leads. I'm gonna show you one more account that does something similar. This is also a webinar funnel. They gave me a $10,000 budget for this, and this is on the 12th. Here I'm actually, so because we did a webinar previously, I found their best 5 to 10 ads, which are in each of these ad sets. Now I'm audience testing. So they only got a 3.5x, 3.5 ROAS from their first webinar that we just ran last week. Similar scenario, but the other client was like 7x, that's perfect. This client, we want to get them obviously closer to a 6 or 7x. So what I'm doing is I'm actually testing a few different audiences. These clients sell a drop shipping course. And you can see I'm doing $25 bids here. We're getting under $4 leads. But if we look inside of this is an ecom interest stack, and it's an original audience. And my main concern isn't the cost per lead. It is, so you can see US, age, all languages, and then it's basically just all ecom related audiences here. And then if I look at this next audience, this has Advantage Plus targeting. So it's the same exact thing. And I did a $2,500 budget on each of these, and it ends right when the webinar starts. This has Advantage Plus targeting. So it has the ecom stack, but then it can also go outside of it with Advantage Plus targeting. And then I have a couple different ones in here as well. This one has lookalike audiences with the ecom stack, just to see if it improves quality. So you can see I've 1% lookalike audiences of their scheduled event and of their purchasers both, and then I've combined it with those ecom, with the ecom interest. And then this one is primarily focused on a warm audience, but because if I spent $2,500 over a few day period on just retargeting, it would destroy, it would be completely out of pocket. It's like it's an audience of like 10,000 people. So there's no possible way you would blow through that in the first $200-300 easily, before it just wouldn't make sense anymore. So, I added Advantage Plus targeting onto it. So you can see this is all of their warm audience. I even put past purchasers on there because they have some low ticket funnels, because I wanted to give it the best audience signal possible. And some of those low ticket purchasers could possibly, we obviously want them to buy their higher ticket offer, which is $5,800 for this client. So if you're looking here, I have the Advantage Plus targeting on. So it's essentially their warm audience with the Advantage Plus targeting on, because my main goal of this isn't to retarget. It will naturally retarget the people because they're in the audience signal, but my main goal is prospecting in addition to that. So that's kind of a happy medium between you're hitting your warm audience, but you're also hitting your cold audience at the same time. And so what I'm going to look for, we use Hyros with this client, and what I'll be able to see is where the ROAS and the cost per purchase for each one of these audiences. They have the same exact ads in each of them. Yeah, it's the same exact 7 ads in each of them. And then the main goal of this webinar is to see, can we get one of these audiences from a 3.5 like it was on the first webinar last week to a 5x, 6x, 7x, and we'll continually refine this as we go. Once we find our baseline audience that works for us, we'll usually use that every time moving forward, and then we'll go back to creative testing and just keep doing creative test after creative test until we hit our ideal KPIs, and then just start scaling from there. I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if you guys have any questions about any of this. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day.